I am Isis, and this is Sistah Sci-Fi Wind Down Wednesday, where we work hard to make Wednesdays your new favorite day of the week. So if you're in our email list and if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, Pinterest, and or Tumblr, you know that today's special guest is Veronica G. Henry. She is a familiar base here at Sistah Sci-Fi Wind Down Wednesday, and we will be discussing Veronica's latest book, The People's Library, which published yesterday. We will be here with our co-host Gabby, so I will let them in. So they should be joining shortly. Hey, Veronica!
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. I did you hear me? I said I love your haircut.
Oh, thank
Your
you.
hairstyle.
Thank you. You're so used to the long flowing hair.
Yes.
It's all gone now.
So I love it. And Gabby, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Awesome.
last couple of days, or last week, Instagram did the same thing where I can hear everybody, but I couldn't see everybody's video, but I can see everybody. So that's terrific. So, yeah, please let me know how your week has been, how your month has been, how your 2026 has been. Oh, thank you, Blurred Library.
Thank you, Keisha.
Keisha, you need to be on. Yeah. So yeah, tell me how your 2026 week and month have been so far.
It's been busy. It's been challenging. It has been crazy, but I'm here.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been pretty similar. A lot more upheaval to deal with, and but I was kind of expecting it. As a historian and librarian, I'm not really surprised. I'm just not enjoying some of this. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I hear you. 2026, like the last couple of years, have been a whirlwind. So this is hopefully a little bit of space of ease to unwind. Again, this is Sistah Sci-Fi Wind Down Wednesday. We're discussing The People's Library, the latest book by Veronica G. Henry. If you want to learn more, I'm dropping the link to the chat. So that has been dropped in the chat. Also, I can see the chat, so if you have questions or want to let us know how you're doing, you can drop that in the chat as well. Before we do anything else, this would be a good time to stop and do a round of self-introduction. So Veronica, we'll start with you, and then Gabby will talk to you, and then we'll discuss the People's Library. I'm very excited.
Awesome. I am Veronica G. Henry. I am the author of The People's Library. In addition to the Scorched Earth duology, the Mambo Reina series, and also Bacchanal.
Yay.
Yeah. Hey, y'all. I'm Gabby Womack. I'm a librarian, historian, and going to become an author soon. So I am happy to be here chatting with y'all. A lot of my work is involved with teaching first year and graduate students how to conduct their research as well as think more critically about it. So I'm really happy to be here to talk about the People's Library.
Yay. Where are you a librarian, Gabby?
I'm at Tufts University.
Nice. Oh, fancy.
You know.
That's how we do.
Tufts University. Okay. I'm here for all librarians, so you could have, I would have been excited about any location and any branch. And speaking of you being a librarian and helping people with research, Gabby, your story reminds me a lot of Echo's character. So the question comes to you, Veronica, how you've crafted a lot of stories about career-driven Black women. How did Echo London's story come to you?
In a roundabout way. So I got the idea. Now, sometimes, as Isis knows, sometimes I get my ideas from, it comes first as a character, and then other times it comes from something I've read, interacted with, heard, etc. So this one came to me, I got the idea first. And this came to me from an article. It was either an article or a post or something that I saw about this library in Denmark where you could borrow people not books. So I thought about that and I was like, how interesting would that be? But it was not like regular books. It was something like, people who would be homeless or somebody who would be having some sort of other life challenge. And these are people that you could talk to and that you could, through that discussion, develop some sort of additional empathy and some insight into other people's challenges. So I thought that that would be an excellent idea to write about. So kind of tucked that one away and had to think about what type of character would fit into that kind of story. So of course it had to be a librarian.
Of course.
Um, and as I started researching librarians and figuring out the history and, figuring out the first Black woman to become a librarian to earn that degree, I said, well, of course, this is going to have to be a Black woman. She's also going to be a pioneer, just like, the first Black woman to earn her degree. She's got to be a pioneer. So she's going to have to work in this awful library that she doesn't want to be in. This is a librarian that Gabby could appreciate because she loves her books, she loves her students, and this is her world. She doesn't want it to change. But what better way to kind of mix things up for a character than to put them in a situation they don't want to be in and see how they react. So that's kind of how Echo came to me.
And Gabby, I'm gonna jump in because I don't have a question about this because I thought it'd come up on this one. And Echo has synesthesia, which
Mhm.
and a unique representation of it. And if you're like, what's synesthesia? Lucius Lyon had it in what is the name?
Empire.
Thank you, Empire.
Empire.
So that was like, oh,
Yes.
so yeah, how did but it also reminded me a lot of Lauren Almina's character and her like neurodivergence and hyperempathy. So how did this neurodivergence of synesthesia come about for Echo?
It was one of those things. I was just thinking of something interesting that would interact with one of the central themes of the book, which is, consciousness is one piece of that, but there's a whole mathematical aspect to what consciousness is and how it develops that we'll talk about a little bit later. But so I wanted to think about someone who would have difficulty with numbers or someone that would have like you said, a neurodivergent reaction to numbers and that sort of thing. So I did some research, of course, on what type of conditions would fit that scenario, came up with synesthesia, but it couldn't be just your typical synesthesia. I had to come up with my own iteration of it, something that I don't even know if it really exists, but I came up with my own idea of what her challenge would be. So that's kind of where I came up with what her, I don't want to say disability because it's not a disability, but what her challenge, I guess I will say, would be.
Mhm. Yeah, I do want to chime in about your inspiration. The Human Library is a very popular program now throughout many libraries, actually. One of my friends every year is a Human Library book at my former institution. So this is a very popular program. So I'm excited that it inspired you actually
Well, I
for
did
the
not know
story.
that. That's actually really a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty popular. And we used to host it at my previous institution. I was one of the librarians helping host that. So yeah, very popular. And I will say I am about almost halfway through the book, and I'm proud to say that this is the most accurate depiction of a librarian I have read yet.
Oh,
So thank you.
oh,
Appreciate it.
high praise coming from you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so it looks like I got the next question here. A near future revitalized Cleveland, dubbed the Phoenix City, plays a critical role in the People's Library. Why did you choose Cleveland as the setting for this book?
Good question. And I think I chose it because it's the last place that people would expect. Um,
Yes.
it's just not a place that people are prone to write about. And I will be honest, I thought about setting this story in New York. I thought about DC. I even considered Atlanta. But
Mm.
what I thought about is there are millions of books written about those places already, right?
Oh
Everybody
yeah.
has wanted to tell a story set for very good reasons. They're lovely cities, but I wanted to do something different. And I thought about, again, for this type of library, for this type of, change, I needed to pick a place that would have the opportunity to kind of rebrand itself. And I thought, what
Mhm.
better place than someplace like Cleveland, which again is actually a really nice city, but just has this reputation based on incidents, 40, 50 years ago, that kind of has stuck. So I thought this was an opportunity to paint that city in a different light and also use it as the basis for a place that would host, um, what I saw as a future revitalization. And the truth
Mhm.
is, much of Silicon Valley, even at this point, is kind of spreading out across the country. Whereas
Right.
everything had been centralized up in Northern California, for the last 20 years, what you're seeing now is a just stream of companies kind of leaving the area or even setting up headquarters in different parts of the country. So I thought it stood to reason. I mean, you've got Austin, certainly, you've got um, uh, Atlanta, New York, and Brooklyn in particular, Chicago, so many other cities are seeing startup activity. I thought it stands to reason that that would spread out even more. You want to talk about Cleveland being a place that's on the water, so that's always a good thing. You want to
Yeah.
talk about a place that has a very strong university system, that's always a good magnet for tech. And then a place that, 20, 30 years in the future would be a good setting for a potential comeback. So you add in affordability and all of those things. I thought it was really the perfect setting and something that would be different. I thought people wanted to read about a different place.
Yeah, and
Totally.
I appreciated it being because I didn't expect it, right? And it wasn't like, oh, and it's Cleveland. Like it was very detailed. It's like we're on 55th and 5th, right? Like this like there's a lot of scenes of Echo looking at the Cahoga River, right?
Hmm.
And so and then yeah, I was like I was recently in Cleveland for like the second or third time in my life. And I'm like, oh, Cleveland is, it's a cool city. It's very diverse.
Hmm.
Because of like a host of different reasons, there's like a pretty strong African American population. So like in reading the book and being there, I was like, yes, this makes sense. Right. And I was thinking like, usually the obvious choices are like New York, DC, Atlanta,
Right.
maybe LA, depending on if
Hmm.
the person likes California. So I thought it was a brilliant choice. So Gabby, thank you for asking that question. And what I like, so the People's Library is set in the near future. There is a lot of tension, but it's not dystopian, which I think particularly my system needed that.
Yeah.
Did it feel important to you to write a book about the future that was not dystopian?
Um, the funny thing is, I totally saw this as being a dystopian novel when I started writing. Now, it didn't end up that way, but that's what I had in my mind. I thought this is not going to be a pleasant future. This isn't going to end well. But as I wrote this story, as happens from time to time, the story had a different idea of where it wanted to go, and so did the characters. So without giving away any spoilers, I will say that I thought it was important to show a future in which AI did not dominate, a future in which AI was in effect, challenged. So, and again, I'm not going to give away what happens exactly, but I wanted to show something that was different than Terminator, something different, again, than everything that we've seen before. So I think when folks get to the end and see what happened, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. Let's put it that way. I don't
I think
think
that makes it
one
more
other thing that I'll
realistic.
add to that is that I don't think I painted an unbelievable future, but I believe it's something
Yeah.
that, yeah, people can accept.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, I think that it is more realistic than what we've seen with the Matrix and everything. Usually, the films start way far out in the future where it's too late to do anything.
Right.
Whereas yours isn't starting there. Yours is picking up where we already where we're already experiencing this stuff, and it's just. I would say it seems almost like I don't know, 10 to 20 years in the future from now.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit more representative of the kind of movements we're already seeing. So I
Absolutely.
love that.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
Yes, yes. And speaking of things I love, I love the architecture of the People's Library. And the description kind of reminds me of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC. The structure being, larger on the top and everything. So,
Hmm.
what real life buildings inspired the People's Library?
It's interesting. I'm so glad that you asked that, because it wasn't that African American History Museum, but it was one in Charleston, Charleston, South
Ah,
Carolina. Not so much the architecture, even though it's a lovely museum if you have a chance to visit, but it was at that museum that I was walking through, and they had what they called, I don't know what they called it, but they were like these little pods, and you could go in. It was
mm,
like a recording booth, but way fancier. So you could go into the recording booth and record an aspect of your life or your family history, for example, and have that included as part of the collection. And of course, I'm like, could this be more perfect? So that became a critical part of the People's Library, that they would have these same sort of pods where you could go in and actually have a private conversation, with one of the virtues, the virtual personage. So that building was actually an inspiration for that. And in addition, the library that I just mentioned in Denmark. Architecturally, though, just in terms of the outside, I was thinking of all of the futuristic buildings that I've ever seen. I looked through tons of Google Photos and other websites looking at people's images or visions of the future. And in
mm,
the end, none of those really appealed to me. So I had to come up with something that I felt would be unique. And it
mm.
was, like you said, Gabby, it was that structure of something that was bigger at the top and then more narrow at the bottom. And I thought that fit, so that's what I went with.
And I think there's also like there are a lot of plants in the People's Library. There's
Yeah.
flooring that is nicer on your joints. I think that's why it's a departure from the dystopian future, because it's a very walkable city, and like commuting is less of an issue, and it just feels like there's a lot of progress on like moving sustainably like
Hmm.
in the world. So there's tension. It's not a
Yes.
utopia, right?
Yes.
Um, but there are things that I'm like, oh, this is nice to think about, like us making progress as a society in these dimensions in the future. I'll bring in Sir Real Deal's question. What part of your research did you leave out of the book? And it's for you, Veronica.
Mm.
Um, there's so much. The one of the most fun aspects of writing is the research, the time, Gabby, that I have to spend in libraries, picking up books, just sitting in a corner, researching, reading. Um, that's one of the most fun parts of the writing process for me. So I delved in, since this book kind of one of the central themes is consciousness. I spent so much time reading about everybody and their mother's theory on consciousness and what it means, where it came from, where it exists before it becomes a thing. So I had written this whole, I want to say it was more than a scene, less than a chapter, about where the characters were having this conversation about the different schools of consciousness, the different thoughts and beliefs, things like, the materialist, the panpsychism, the denialist, all of those different schools of thought on what consciousness is. And my lovely editor, I don't know if he's on, Mr. Clarence Haynes, said, yeah.
It's got to go.
He's like, cut it.
Yes, he said, this is lovely and all, but you're going to lose people. So I shed 2 or 3 or 10 tears, and I cut the whole scene, although I kept it. It's in a separate document. Who knows? I may use it at some date in the future, but I wasn't willing to let it go completely. But that was one of the things that I was so happy to write, but just end up having to
Mm,
let go.
real. So
I'm still feeling the pain. I don't know if y'all
no,
noticed
I
that.
know. You could, I mean, you could do it as like a people like to do this thing where they release like a not a prologue, but like, something at, after the
Yeah.
fact for anybody who's on their like mailing list or something, so they
Hmm.
got
Oh,
access.
That's
yeah.
So
actually a really good
don't let it go.
idea. Yes, that's a good
Like a
idea.
Don't
sex
let it
dinner.
go.
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be great for
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So like all of your work at its core, there's a mystery. And so what draws you to write at this intersection of speculative fiction and mystery?
Um, God, because I love mystery novels. But it actually goes, when I think about it, it goes a lot deeper than that. So when I was a kid, my dad always brought us puzzles. That's one thing. So we always had puzzles around the house. I mean, the old puzzles where you're putting the pieces together. And he always brought us brain teasers, things you kind of had to figure out, things you had to do deep concentration, deep focus on. And I think that aspect of my brain that was developed doing all those activities, it just became really appreciative of how to put things together, how to
Mm,
deconstruct, how to solve for X. So I think that stuck. So I started reading. I mean, I read widely. I read everything. Read from everywhere. Uh, every continent I've read, every time period I've read. I read nonfiction to fiction, but mystery's always been a really big part of my reading. And speculative fiction has also always been a big part of my reading. So I think it was almost natural based on, childhood and what I've read that those two would always intersect. And I think people kind of like going on that journey. I
mm,
think people love kind of trying to put the pieces together and figure out what's going on. So as much as I enjoy it, I think readers are actually enjoying it as well. There was a time where I don't think it was as widely accepted, I think, as it is now to write kind of
mhm,
genre bending fiction, but almost now. And I think it's because people didn't trust readers. Readers are looking for a good story. They're willing to go with you if you're telling a good story. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to or got emails from that have said, "Oh, I don't like spec fiction. I don't like sci-fi. I didn't like fantasy, but I like your work." And I'm like, so if you just tell a good story, I think that people are willing to go along with you. And for me, just combining those two things just comes naturally, and people seem to like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say that for the concept of using mystery with a librarian actually makes the most sense to me in general, since our part of our job is asking questions,
Hmm.
sometimes to the annoyance of others. Uh, but yes, the nonstop curiosity makes total sense with this, and speculative fiction lines up perfectly with that as well.
Hmm.
So
Well, it's
really
interesting that you
great.
say that, Gabby. Tell me about the types of questions that you guys have to ask, the things that you have to, in your day-to-day work, in your day-to-day job, what aspects of them kind of fit into that?
Yeah,
That
yeah. So, yeah, since we're talking, since the what I'm teaching students a lot of the time is about critical thinking skills, we spend some time where we're talking about who has the kind of authority to be talking about a certain subject or writing about a certain subject. Um, whether or not their authority is something that you can question or push back against, or if they are actually someone who is a specialist in that topic, because the focus is on not necessarily just accepting information as you get it, it's about engaging with that information
mm,
and seeing whether or not you can find a way to be in conversation with it when you're writing. So that's part of it in the day-to-day when I'm teaching classes. And in my work with other librarians, part of the reason why we do so well in our organizational work and such is because we're always asking clarifying questions
mm,
when we are in these groups and everything. So if somebody is bringing up a certain topic and they're explaining it in a way that I don't understand, I will ask questions until it makes sense to everyone. Um, and some librarians may not be into that, but that is generally something that we're encouraged to do
mm,
through library school. So it works for me because I'm a history person, so I'm always nosy like that.
mm.
Tell me.
Yes. Good
Yep.
combination.
Hmm.
You and Echo would definitely get along, and I think Margaret would
Oh
have
yeah.
definitely the questioning of who is the true authority. Margaret would have appreciated
Oh
that.
yeah.
If you're just joining, I am Isis. I'm here with Veronica and Gabby. This is Sister Sci-Fi Mind on Wednesday. If you're not following us and you love this conversation, you can click this little white arrow and you can follow all these accounts on Instagram. We're discussing the People's Library. Um,
Mm.
I so Veronica, I've loved all your work, like Bacchanal, the Mama Reina series, the Scorched Earth series. With that said, I would humbly consider the People's Library your best work yet. Is that something you agree with? Hopefully that feels like praise. Um, and what tools have you used to continue to grow as a writer?
Um, it is always so hard. You love all of your babies. You want to love them equally. Um, I will say that this book, I feel like this book stretched me more than anything else I've ever written. And for that reason, I love it as I love the others. I'm not going, look, they're behind me. They may hear me talking about. But you know what? I love this world. I love these characters. And I do feel like I'm a better writer for having written this story. So, again, high praise from you, Isis. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. What I do to continue to grow my skills as a writer, honestly, the first thing is read. Read, read,
Yes.
read, read everything. Sometimes I just go and wander around the library and pick up a book by an author I don't know, by something that nobody recommended, maybe just I like the cover. But I just try to read and read widely. I have a good group of friends who are excellent beta readers for me. They keep me honest. I read their work, they read mine, tell me when I'm going off the rails. Um, and I think my significant other may be on. He is also always my first reader and my idea guy, and is very quick to tell me when I'm talking some nonsense. So those tools, those people are invaluable to me in my writing journey. Having excellent editors as well. I will tell you, there is no greater gift to a writer aside from a nice, which I have on the desk here, a nice writer's thesaurus, is an editor. Editors have this innate ability to look at what you have on the page, have some conversations with you about what you're trying to do, and then help you kind of bring that out. Because sometimes what's in your head does not make it onto the page. And they're very skilled at helping writers kind of bring that out and polish up the work. So yes, those tools kind of help me grow.
I love it. And I'm opening the page to the acknowledgments where I was so excited because usually you read the acknowledgments and you're like, oh, these seem like lovely people. I don't know any of them, but I knew a lot of these people. So Andrea Hurston, I was like, I know Andrea. I have not been to LegalCon. Your agent, Mary Seymour, who I met at AWP last year.
Hmm.
Elizabeth Ajimong, who I don't know yet. And
My
Clarence A.
cousin.
Hayes, I know Clarence.
Hmm.
But I don't know Eric. So yeah, I appreciated your acknowledgments, and I was like, oh yeah, Veronica and I move in the same community, and yeah,
Yes.
like that support.
Andrea was actually really, she gave me a couple, two or three really excellent research books to read. And I got to meet her in person for the first time, where I met Isis for the first time at Worldcon in Seattle. So all those email exchanges and Zoom calls, we got to finally hang out in person. So that was awesome.
And WorldCon was such a blur. Like, had
Oh
I
yeah.
we would have sat and had a meal, but I was like,
Running,
people were like,
yes.
do you remember this from WorldCon? I was like, I barely remember. Yeah, but yes, I do. It was a pleasure to meet you. Okay, Gabby, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
And also for Gabby, I should have said this earlier. For any of the questions, if you have another question you want to ask that question instead, definitely feel free.
Oh, for sure. So in the next question we have, we're talking more about how AI is shaping or reshaping libraries in real time. So right now, I know that a lot of us are dealing with um, our higher ups wanting to appease folks by including AI tools in everyday life. So we're talking about search tools, we're talking about cataloging, we're talking about plagiarism for the most part is a huge issue with AI tools right now. So, what aspects of this story, this imagined future, feels closest to present day issues, the reality?
Um, what's interesting is I would love to turn that question back on you. Um,
I'll answer
because
after you.
I really want to hear your perspective on this because all I have is kind of my observation and
Mm,
what I made up in my head that I put down in the book. But well, first I'll say this, and then I really want to hear your thoughts on this. Um, and I don't want to see or live in a world where the People's Library exists. Um,
right.
I don't want to see it. I want to live in a world where kids are still able to go to a library like I did, where it's a place of refuge, where it's a place where, I mean, think about it. You can go into a library, any library, you can learn anything you want, you can go any place you want. You could go to the past, the present, the future. You can learn, be, and see anything all for free.
Hmm.
That that can't go away. So, like I said, the future that I wrote about with the People's Library was interesting, but I don't want books to ever not be a thing. And I don't want that to be a place where our future generations have to grow up. What I'm
Right.
worried about now with AI is that people are in, and I won't say people so much as corporations are in such a rush to adopt the technology that they're
Mhm.
not giving thought as to, the real mental, physical, ecological impact. And what I'm most concerned about is the cognitive impacts of it.
Yeah,
So
same.
those are kind of my thoughts, but I would love to hear about what's happening right now in libraries, what you see, Gabby, as the future, and what your fears are and what your hopes are.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a topic that has been dominating a lot of our professional development spaces, our conferences, is starting to take over, which this isn't funny, haha, but funny, ironic that before this, it was the same old topic of DEI
Hmm.
over and over and over again. Like, how do we get this field to be more diverse? For those of you who don't know, librarianship is a predominantly white profession, predominantly white women in this profession. So I'm one of the smaller population of Black librarians in this field. And so now we are slipping into this kind of tug of war between the librarians who are thinking of this as inevitable, and so we must go along to get along. We must learn everything we can about these tools. Some of them are actually excited about these tools and aren't really thinking about all of these other implications. And then there are the other side. There's the other side of the coin, which is more close to what my experience is and what my concerns are. And we are um, not exactly. We're more skeptical
Hmm.
about taking on something like this for multiple reasons. And part of that, like I said, I think is because of my history background. In a regular, library, a public library, you can walk in and you can get multiple perspectives about the same history,
Right.
and you can continue to get updated versions of that history once we get more research or more evidence of new information. Um, the problem is in a situation like this where you are condensing that all the way into one place for people to get that information is now it has flattened the story.
Hmm.
And so now we end up with the bigger issue of people not being able to tell whether or not this AI tool, this generative AI, is actually an authority on that
Right.
subject. And they are reading it as if they are just reading, as if God had then given down this information to them and it is now truth.
Right.
Unfortunately, not everybody realizes that generative AI is trained with the same tools that we use for Google and for all of these other algorithms. And so the algorithm is inherently racist and it is
Hmm.
inherently ableist. It has all the same problems. None of that has gone away, right?
Hmm.
And this product has just been pushed into the public sphere without that much testing. We are the test subjects. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to remind people that we are the commodity that they are making money off of. And that's why so much of it is free. Whereas with libraries and with our information, we aren't technically free because they're paying for it with their taxes.
Yeah.
Like, so you should be taking advantage of something that is supposed to be for the public good, just like riding on the highway or anything like that. So it's kind of it's in a place where we are worried about overuse. We're worried about people not realizing that this is going to be a bubble that pops at some point, and that people are starting to rely too much on it emotionally and for their skills. They're offloading critical thinking skills, and just taking this as like I said, an authority. And I think that's what was my worry when I was reading the book, honestly, in the beginning, is because who is the one programming these
Right.
historical figures? Who's putting the information on them? Who's creating their visual, their image? Because every single person has some kind of bias,
Yeah.
and putting forth this kind of library implies that there's none. And that's worrisome. That's what worries me about it. So that's kind of where we're at. Where some librarians like me are trying to educate people on generative AI, how to actually use it, but also how to not use it, and showing people that a lot of the things that they are trying to get from AI could easily be figured out or found with just the skills that we
Right.
teach them.
Right.
Yeah, so that's been an issue. And like I said, it's trying to remind people that what it's working on, a lot of it is theft. So we have, writers' work, like we saw, I think a year or two ago, numerous authors finding out that their whole catalog of books had been
It was one
trained.
of them.
You too? Ah, all of their works being trained, the AI being trained on that without permission or payment or anything.
Yeah.
And that's theft, and we have to call it what it is, and that's plagiarism. Same thing with artistry, any artistry really, and any kind of invention and stuff. So it's being kind of not just stolen from us by like the upper classes. Now it's
Yeah.
stolen by a computer system and
Yeah.
a cloud. So
Yeah.
it's a lot to offset. So the one thing that I will say about this, when you were, I think Isis was talking about this, there was both the positives of having like a more walkable city and things like that, but then the downside of having this people's library.
Right.
And I wasn't really surprised by that, because that's usually what happens is we have corporations who are like, how can we appease them
Yeah.
while at the same time doing what we want?
Yeah.
So you make everybody else feel better by going green and by putting green on everything and stuff like that, and then you just do what you want. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why when I'm reading the book, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, yes.
She saw through it all.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I was
Gabby
like,
was
girl,
right.
don't listen.
Yeah, yeah. Gabby was right. Gabby would have had a plan from day one. So, yeah.
They say Scorpios know things. I don't know very much about horoscopes or anything, but I've been told that we are, when you're at a loss,
Intuitive.
we will be there to say I told you so.
Speaking of wonderful editors, Clarence just joined the live. So I just want to say, hey, Clarence, how are you? And as you know, we're discussing the People's Library. Clarence, if you have any comments or questions in the chat, just drop them in. Um, so yeah, this is a great question now that Clarence is here. Veronica, what books would you consider the People's Library to be in conversation with? And I'd like to invite you to read an excerpt to illustrate that, if that feels easeful for you.
Um, okay, there's just a couple. This is always a tough question. I would say, what's it? Kazuo Ishiguro, and the book was Clara and the Sun. Is that the name of it?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one, because it's told from the perspective of AI, And it deals with some of the same things, emotion, human emotion, memory, what it means to have consciousness and to be alive. I think the other one is Dave Eggers. It's called The Circle. I think there's a part two of that
Oh,
one.
yeah.
But The Circle it's sort of like in the People's Library, how the, tech corporations have kind of taken over the government. His book, I think, is similar in that in the future, a tech company kind of dominates the society, and you have the same issues around privacy and humanity and that sort of thing, but just from the perspective of this major tech organization running things. So those two themes, I think, are kind of both things that speak to the same things that I speak to in my book.
Mm.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
can do a reading if you want. Do you want me to do a reading now? Okay. I
Yes,
timed
that'd be
myself,
perfect
and what
for
I
those.
picked should be about 3 minutes, so it won't take too long. Okay, let's see. Start with the prologue first. Welcome to a place called Promise, vast and open as a rose in full bloom, formless and adrift, absent smell and taste and touch and sight. Promise is as unknowable as it is inaccessible, a place of pure potentiality. Guided by cosmic hands of infinite wisdom, substance and reality are birthed. It is not a place for corporeal beings, not in the sense one would understand, neither warm nor cold, brilliant darkness swirling with limitless possibility, a mosaic of consciousness, biding time, content to wait. From this fertile wellspring, it all begins. Okay, and for the section I picked, just a little context. So it's at the end of a long day at the People's Library, and Echo and her AI assistant, Gina, are shutting down the library. But just before they're able to close the doors, a mysterious figure staggers inside. Just for a note too, Gina is her AI assistant, Walter is her janitor. Okay, let's see. Start here. The figure was covered in black from head to toe and was about her height, but it was the mask, shockingly similar to the one she'd seen on the escaped Virtue, that sent her stumbling backward. There was something familiar about the person that Echo couldn't place. The figure advanced, steps appearing as if walking through knee-high mud. So focused was Echo on the mask that it took a moment for her to register the hilt of the knife, the blade buried in the center of the stranger's chest, the drip, drip of blood, shockingly red against the pale flooring. Echo was a pendulum, swinging between wanting to rush over and help and wanting to haul ass right past her and out the door. In the end, her mind blanked, and the only thing she could do was back away. Her gaze darted between the knife and the open door, willing Walter to run back inside. But only the golden hour hush and a howling wind stood witness. Echo dropped her tote bag, and its contents spilled out onto the tiles. The trespasser staggered deeper into the library. Then, with Echo's horror mounting, a slender, trembling hand, a woman's hand, her wrist encircled by a gold-cuffed wearable, reached up to the knife and slowly pulled it from her chest. The weapon clattered to the floor. The woman collapsed, arms splayed out on either side, her face hidden. Echo had the good sense to go over and kick the knife away. Her heart was a wrecking ball inside her chest. It took a full minute standing there, waiting for the sound of a siren before she could make herself move. She nudged the woman with her toe, fully expecting her to leap up and wrap her hands around Echo's neck.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing. Echo lowered herself to the floor, and passages from every crime novel she'd ever read warned her against touching the woman or moving her body, but she couldn't help herself. It was that mask. The finger on the neck confirmed there was a pulse. She gently turned the woman over. A dark patch of wetness spread across her chest, but Echo turned her attention to the mask. She probed the edges, looking for a way to remove it. Finally, she found two clasps, one at each temple, and released them. She took the mask off. It was the same woman who had doused her with what had looked like blood earlier. the navy suit. Her eyes found echoes. Her lips were moving, but her voice was too faint. Echo leaned over. Who did this? What are you trying to tell me? The woman licked her dried lips and blinked hard, like she was losing consciousness. But then the woman coughed and Echo refocused. Zero, the woman sputtered. It all begins with nothing. That's
That was a good one to pick.
it.
Yeah, that was a good one to pick. So then you already have several books that are parts of series. Should we readers expect more from Echo London after this book?
Oh, gosh.
You look
I
scared when
had,
I said that.
I'm like, is somebody going to ask? I had written this with the idea of it being a standalone, but
Mm,
I will say that there may be more to the story. I have had people reach out and ask if there was going to be another book in this series, and I had not given that any thought because, like I said, I thought, okay, the Echo story I think came to a good close,
mm.
but again, without giving away anything, there are some threads that could be kind of pulled on, so you never know.
You could even do a prequel.
Oh,
That'd be hella cool. Just saying, library
oh,
life.
oh, yes, I like
Because
that.
I'm not. I'm just gonna put the plug in there, shoot my shot.
Mhm.
Um, I I would read it really hard if it talked about the previous uprisings or anything like that, fights against AI,
Okay. Yes,
and librarian life included, obviously. But yes.
absolutely. Because there's the resistance, and people will see that as they read. There's a resistance, and there's a lot of stuff that takes place off of the page.
Hmm.
Prequel,
That's what we need. The people need
prequel.
it.
The people need the prequel.
Yes.
Echo I'm calling her Echo. Isis, for some reason we can't hear you.
Oh snap.
There was
Okay.
music outside, and I put. So yeah, I love the idea of a prequel. We could learn about Baltimore and the human.exe
Mm,
Hmm.
uprising. We could learn more about FM Lewis Library, which I kept Googling. I was like, this is real. And Google was like,
Hmm.
it's,
There's
it's
more. There's more.
yeah.
yeah.
So I'd read a prequel, I'd read a sequel, I'd read all the
Read it
things.
all.
Um, so just to bring in a question before we transition to the this or that, Ludo Wang says, I just purchased your book from Audible. Looking forward to listening. Thank you. Oh, speaking of the audiobook, one of our favorite audiobook actors, Robin Miles, should
Yes.
Yes,
also reads The People
Incredible.
Photography.
she's
So
outstanding.
yeah, pick it up from your favorite audiobook dealer. So we recommend any any platform, but we have a partnership with Libra FM. We love audiobooks. Okay.
And thank
Um,
you for the purchase, whoever that was. Thank you.
um, so we have, is there a question that you wish Gabby and I asked you before we transition to
Oh,
this or that?
Um, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So the this or that, Victoria, you know this very well. Gabby, this may be your first time, so I will give two options, this or that. And you can respond back rapid fire. If you're watching in the on in cyberspace, you can drop your answers in the chat. I'll bring it into the conversation. There's a little bit of a delay, so if I don't bring it in automatically, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just that there's a delay.
okay.
Um. Oh, and I'll say this again in the this or that. It's all hypothetical. So neither one of the options disappear, going to the either nobody's hurt, there are no dire consequences. It's just a game exercise. It's just a conversation exercise. Everybody is okay. All right, first one. Philosophy or science?
Mm,
That's an impossible
uh,
choice.
I'm gonna go with science.
I'm gonna have to, as the person who has a newsletter that's entitled The Philosopher's Scribe, I'm still going to have to go with science. But I love
Oh,
That
both.
was a twist.
well,
A
yeah, that's the
twist.
plot twist. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go fly, and then yeah, that was a plot twist. That my face was like, oh my god, plot twist.
I can't
You
help
Um,
it.
got me.
so philosophy definitely, science definitely won in the conversation, but in the chat, philosophy is winning. So that's very
Mm.
fascinating. I think I would also go with science. Not that I'm a scientist, but yeah.
You got
Um,
sci-fi in your name.
Yeah.
that's true.
It's
Um,
science and philosophy. I totally agree with
Yes,
that. So there,
exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
so the next one, and all these questions are based on the themes of the People's Library. So the next one is zero or infinity. Oh, and Clarence said science. Okay, so
Zero. Zero is such an interesting number. I want to talk about. There was this book that I did for research. I'm going on a total tangent, but there was this book I picked up for research. It was called The Zero, the biography of a very dangerous number, and it was by Charles. I'm going to mispronounce the last name, but it's Seife, Seife. If you get a chance, if you just want to read about the history of the number zero and how it scared humanity for thousands of years, because the concept of nothing was something that we found it very difficult to accept. But there's a
Mhm.
whole history of it. There's a whole a really good book that if you want to pick that up, it will give you some fascinating thoughts on the number zero. So, long way of saying, in between infinity and zero, I got to go with zero. Love zero.
it's definitely zero. I
Yeah,
love her.
you've convinced me.
Yes, and I'm dropping zero in the chat, and I do love that you are able to introduce the readers to like how controversial the concept of zero is, because now we take zero literally for
Yeah.
granted. So yeah, so I appreciated that, and yeah, we have some choices of infinity. Oh, a lot of
Some
infinity
I
people
was
are
coming
gonna
up.
going with
say infinity
infinity. I
originally.
didn't, yes,
Yeah,
I
when
didn't,
until you started talking about it, then I was like,
yes.
maybe I will go zero.
It's,
You've brought me
it's
to the other
interesting.
side.
Yes. I mean, it's just like, um, there were, religious people who were very opposed to the, acceptance of the number. It was, just was considered dangerous, but it's a fascinating read if you want to delve a little bit more into.
The power of zero. I dropped the link in the chat, and I love, because I think without the conversation in the book and now, I think I would have gone with infinity. It's like, but
Yeah,
anyway,
same.
Yeah.
yeah. Next question: immortality or afterlife?
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with afterlife. I don't want to be here forever. I'm just saying.
I'm with you. I have to go to the afterlife, even though we have no idea what that's going to entail. I don't want to be here forever either. That's just no.
You know, I love vampires. So,
Mm.
No, I feel you on that.
so like I don't. I mean, like
ISIS
I
is going to be here 2,000 years from now. ISIS
Listen,
is.
2,000
listen.
years from now.
My
Um,
child life version of me would have still said afterlife because of my obsession with ancient Egyptian like stories
Mm.
and yeah, so that was part of the reason I've always been into the afterlife.
that makes
Interesting.
sense. And there's a very interesting. Do we share the immortality with quote unquote others? And of course, it'd be like being a vampire. You can share it. So,
Hmm.
sharing is caring. Next question is the Schomburg Research Library in Harlem or the Auburn Avenue Research Library in Atlanta?
Mm.
Mm. I
Tough
can't answer
choice.
this one because I have not been to either, but one of my friends worked at Schoenberg, so I'm gonna go with Schoenberg. Shout out to Bridget.
Um, I have not visited either, but I'm on the newsletter list for Schaumburg, so I got to go Schaumburg.
Okay, and I'm gonna go with Schomburg too, but I do
All right.
follow Audubon Avenue on Instagram, so
I'm
I
gonna have
love
to look them
both.
up. See, I didn't know about them, so
Yeah,
that's
I need to
something I
look
can
into
look up.
them.
I see some
Okay,
other votes for Harlem. Yeah, see, and
Oh
It's
yeah,
in New York. How can we,
yeah,
not do that?
it's in New York, and I think it was the
and
first in Harlem Rhapsody. They mentioned it. It was the first African American library in the country, but I
yeah,
did not
founded
research
by
that
a
with the
librarian.
librarians.
Founded by a librarian.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Arturo Schomburg is a Puerto Rican librarian who, well, we are fighting for him to get that title, but he became the biggest collector of books on Black history and Black life
Wow.
because when he was growing up in Puerto Rico, his white Puerto Rican teacher told him that Black people do not have a history. And so he
Wow.
spent the rest of his life proving her wrong. And now
Great.
that library is his collection and more. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to go with that. I got to go with that.
We made the right choice.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
somebody
Jenny,
did a news story on it. Jenny.
yes, Jenny, it might be, that may be hard. So if you want to drop your news story in the chat, that would be terrific. This will be our last this or that. Again, this is just a thought experiment. Nobody disappears. Everybody is okay. Um, Virginia Proctor Powell Florence or Michael Treats. And these are our favorite Black librarians, of course, excluding Gabby, who's obviously our favorite Black librarian. But yeah, except for Gabby, our favorite Black librarian.
Oh gosh.
Hmm.
That's it. I'm going to have to go with Virginia. Only because she was the first, she was the pioneer. She paved the way. She took all the hard knocks. Not that Michael doesn't take his now too, certainly.
Yeah.
But love them both. But I'm going with Virginia.
So I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with Michael because he is key.
Gabby.
Oh, somebody said Gabby. I'm like, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say Michael because he is bringing folks back into the library who hadn't really even considered using one.
Yes.
Um, we have been. I can't even count how many times people have asked me what the point of having a library anymore is if we have ebooks
Oh,
or what do I even do or things like that. So he has really put us on the map and he's brought people back into literacy the same way that LeVar Burton has for me. So I feel like his impact, we're still waiting to see more of that, but I'm already seeing some of that rolling in. And not just with the young folks, I'm seeing adults getting library cards for the first
awesome.
time because of
Awesome.
Michael. So shout out to Michael.
Shout out to Michael. Definitely.
We
Can't
love
argue with that.
you.
Awesome. And I love both of those answers. I'm here for all libraries. Um, the next time we talk, I had the question of like, what was the importance of making the People's Library a physical space as opposed to online destination? So we
Hmm.
can answer that offline and post that in social media since we're at time. Um, this was amazing.
This was
So
so
fun.
much fun. So much fun. We
We
got
need
we
to
got to
talk
do it again.
again.
Yes. We got
Yes,
to do
Have
this
yes,
more
again.
questions.
We have more questions and we need more librarians.
Oh
More
yes,
librarians.
yes.
yes.
I will tell my friends.
We got
I
to
know
get something
many
together.
many Black librarians.
Yes.
So again, we're discussing the People's Library. I, Veronica G. Henry. If you like the conversation, you can click this arrow to follow all of us. Veronica will be back with Stacy, Nathaniel discussing the ephemera collection in about a month. Dates are
Yes.
about
Next month.
yeah, same topics: AI, libraryship, rebellion, and we'll move coast. We'll be more focused on the West Coast, and we'll talk a lot about the Huntington Library, which is another one of my favorite
Mm.
libraries.
Yes.
So, yeah, yay! Is this in DC? I don't know
Thank
what this
you.
is, but yeah, we'll answer that question later. Okay, bye
Thank you,
everyone.
Ursula Moore. See my sister there. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Isis. Thank you,
Thank
Gabby.
y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.